Good evening, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Talking Point. My name is Faraz Patel. Jazakallah so much for staying with us. Now, we have seen with regards to the government of national unity many parties coming into the frame. One of the latest parties just yesterday was the Freedom Front Plus, but prior to that, the Pan-African Congress became one of those parties to join the government of national unity. Now, joining me, I'd like to welcome the PAC's Secretary for Finance and a member who was leading the negotiations with regards to the Government of National Unity, Jaki Seroke. Mr. Seroke, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Point on Hilaal TV.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Mr. Seroke, I was a bit surprised. I think many others were surprised also because just a few days before, you're part of the Progressive Caucus that called for an inclusion in this government of national unity. When I listened to Apapue, the Secretary General of the PAC, he said they want to be part of this government of national unity. Talk to us about wanting to be part of this GNU.
Now, we have our own explanation of the current situation. Particularly after the stalemate, we call it that, from the results of the elections. One of our options was to really advocate for a government of national unity. Fortunately, the African National Congress was thinking along the same lines. We had a discussion with them, and we had points that we thought we were thinking alike on. And we emphasized the points where we would make minimum demands or requirements for everyone to be part of that government of national unity. Because it is really for the sake of the country and also to allow the South African people to have a conversation, to discuss and be part of the resolution of all the problems that we have after the stalemate. At the political level, the government of national unity, in our view, needed to have an all-inclusive approach without discriminating on any party, particularly the 18 parties that have made the cut and are now in Parliament, in the National Assembly. I suppose the same thing would apply to the provinces. And we have a great experience of coalition work in local government politics.
There was something interesting when I was at the press conference of the ANC just before the official elections was announced. It was a colleague from the SABC who said that what the ANC could be doing with regards to having this coalition or government of national unity would be the greatest split in ideology since the PAC split from the ANC. How, in terms of ideologies and manifestos, is this going to work? Because my understanding on the Pan-African Congress, the PAC, is that it's deep-rooted in Pan-Africanism and the upliftment of Black Africans or previously disadvantaged colors, for example, colored people, Indian people. And then you've got the Democratic Alliance with neoliberal policies. The IFP have got their policies. The Patriotic Alliance has their policies, especially when it comes to immigration. How is this going to work from a PAC's perspective?
Look, the government of national unity, whilst it works within the framework of political philosophies, theories, and ideologies, it is actually a strategy to go through a phase. It's a compromise position that by nature should be all-inclusive in order to allow us to contest the elections anew after 5 years. And in doing that, it is a strategy to offer all the political parties an opportunity to show what they're made up of when it comes to the national interest or party political interest. In terms of us in the PAC, we think that there has been serious limitations and shortfalls from the CODESA negotiations. And those negotiations have resulted in what we see right now. There has been more than 4,000 protests from communities on issues that are basic and simple, and they are called service delivery protests in our communities over the past 30 years. Because the way in which the structure of government was made was more elitist. It was looking at protecting the interests of the previous regime before 1994, and looking at safeguarding South Africa from going downscale and not collapsing completely from the revolution. So it was a compromise which not all of us are happy with, but it was also a trap for the ANC to work with one of their hands at the back and the other one in front. So it just was not working. This is an opportunity for a fresh start, for the second revolution, if you like, without blood, and to allow all the citizens, this is how we approach it, all the citizens to look at their place and confirm their place in a future society in South Africa.
You were in those negotiations, you led it from a Pan-African Congress perspective. When you sat down with the ANC and whichever political parties were there, what is it that the Pan-African Congress brought to the table from their perspective? Because one would assume that you've been invited to the table, your voice matters. What is it that the PAC brought to the table to say, well, this has to work, otherwise we're walking away from the government of national unity?
We brought in quantitative values onto the table, and here are they. That the government of national unity must not be elitist. It must not be confined to the executive authority, to positions in government only. It must have an overarching influence into society, into everyday society. So we said it must be linked with a national dialogue. A national dialogue that is extra-parliamentary, that is able to offer a government an opportunity to hear from the people on an ongoing basis, from every angle. And I say this because that national dialogue must include the faith communities, must include business, all sectors of business, must include labor, must include communities who have their own gripes and grievances over things such as water, food, and almost everything that applies to uplifting those communities. It must include youth, it must include women, it must be as broad as possible, because some of the issues demand immediate attention. They don't have to wait for 5 years. And an approach like that then means that the government of national unity concept also overlaps into the legislature. The National Assembly must be able to work with the aim of uniting everybody and discussing these issues in a transparent manner, with checks and balances to see to it what is spoken by, or what is said and committed by the executive authority, by government, is applicable. And also because we've had this problem for a long time, that the National Assembly has been a lapdog of government. And we've seen it in many instances where they take the vote to defend what is not really defendable. So we need to have the concept of government of national unity applying in all sectors of society. That's what we brought to the table.
One final question before we go to the break, Mr. Seroke. A memo has been going around, and I don't know whether you're privy to it, that the DA's federal chairperson, Helen Zille, said that the DA needed to be consulted first before the ANC consulted with two specific parties. That's the PAC and the Good Party. I don't know whether you're aware of that, and if you are aware of it, what is your response to that? That you've mentioned now that it must not be elitist and that it needs to be all-inclusive, but if a opposition party like the Democratic Alliance is saying, well, hey, we need to be told about this, is it something do you foresee as a problem?
No, it's a problem, yes, but it can be resolved
How?
with a common understanding that the DA, I think, has deliberately made it known in public that they don't go along with this. First, the DA. The DA is no longer opposition once they get in. They are not official opposition. They must discard that concept. They go into the government of national unity with their support base and must work for the interest of their support base and that of others. All the political parties that are in the government of national unity are equals politically, despite their various strengths, but they're equal. So we think that the Helen Zille was trying to muscle in a position that allowed the DA to call the shots and make a decision on who must come in and who must not come in. If they have a beef with the EFF, for instance, then the EFF must not be allowed to come in. And we told the African National Congress that this is unacceptable. I mean, you were the primary movers of the government of national unity as the party with the most votes. They have 40%. So why would you allow the principles of a government of national unity to be bullied about by a party like the DA? And they've had a conversation with the DA to discuss this. I think that the government of national unity does not preclude us from having differences. It does not, our fight, because we come from different angles, it does not mean that we must compromise with each other at every level. It gives us an opportunity to serve the country. It gives us an opportunity to settle issues that we would normally fight over on a compromise basis. And it also means that there is no ultimate winner. So all it means is that what is good for communities comes first, rather than what the interests of the political parties are. And we believe that the DA has been wrong in this instance.
Okay. After the break, we're going to touch on what the PAC wants to bring into the government of national unity on an overall basis. Do stay tuned. My conversation with Jaki Seroke, who was the lead member of negotiations with the GNU, continues after this break. Welcome back to Talking Point. I'm in conversation with Jaki Seroke, who was the lead negotiator for the Government of National Unity representing the Pan-African Congress. Mr. Seroke, so you've got your seats in the National Assembly. It's more of the same what had happened obviously in 2019. When you're at that table, when you're a part of the Government of National Unity, along with obviously the party's president, Mzwandeli Nyonsho, along with Apapue, the Secretary General, what is it that the PAC would like to bring to this Government of National Unity that will be different from potentially other parties that are part of this GNU?
Well, the PAC has its own analysis and belief system that we think is important to resolve some of the key problems in the country. We are a Pan-Africanist organization. We look at our own country even from an international perspective. And our view is that the state of South Africa and the country itself must be able to, once and for all, resolve the issue of the national question. This includes the sovereignty of the country, the involvement of the indigenous people into access to land. It involves a greater education of the South African community on the issue of race or no race. It also includes placing South Africa in the international geopolitical space as a country that has compassion and works for a greater cause of humanity. We need to continue with our role in the Middle East, for instance, where we support the people of Palestine. We need to continue with our role in Africa and boost Africa's economy so that Africa can stand on its own. We need to address and confront those issues in such a way that Africa can be a player in world affairs. That's basically the projection and the trajectory of the Pan-Africanist Congress. We also need to, in detail, allow people to hear our story and our policy positions on various issues. And by this, I mean, we are a socialist party. We believe in redistribution of wealth to be accessible to citizens of the country.
And land?
We think that land is an asset that should belong to the people, and we believe that with all of those things, we'll be able to drive the self-determination that is necessary to uplift our communities.
I want to touch on the land question. When we were at the Union buildings covering the inauguration, I'm sure you may know also that there is a Khoisan tribe that is camped out on the lawns at the Union buildings.
They've been there for more than 2 years or so.
Now, government has not really done anything to push for the land that they're asking for. And, you know, you've mentioned about the indigenous people, and land redistribution without compensation is something that the PAC has been advocating for.
Our position is restore the land to its original
owners, right? How is that going to? If the sixth administration could not do that, is there confidence that the seventh administration, with the PAC involved, will be able to address that very pertinent question?
Yes, we'll be there to fly that flag, to talk on behalf of.
But is there a will from government to do it, especially the ANC, who obviously holds the largest share of this GNU?
Our role in politics is to persuade the other partner. We have been able to persuade the ANC to look at the NGU as a salvation for the country, and not just a tiny conglomerate of so-called bigger parties. And then when we talk to them, we have the same origins. We believe that we will be able to find common ground with the ANC because we come from the liberation movement. We'll also go into other space, into the national agenda, and put these questions for conversation, for discussion, until we find a resolution commonly with the rest of the people.
Cabinet positions, is that something the PAC is interested in?
No, we have not bargained on the basis of self-interest or on the basis that we need this or that from government. And we're doing that because it is not an appropriate way to deal with the issues. There are laws in the country, and the appointment of cabinet is a prerogative of the state president. If he doesn't like us, fine. But we will still continue to support the government of national unity. And we also think that a cabinet must be based on merit. We need good people who will be able to implement some of the decisions of cabinet. And if we don't fit into that, fine. And we will be told, we'll see that we don't have the reasons. And if we fit in, why not? We should play a role in it too. But our view, quite frankly, is that the PAC itself still has a lot of work to do in the National Assembly. We believe our role is greater there than in the cabinet. So we have not really advocated for a national government of national unity on the basis of self-interest.
Mr. Seroke, by you joining the GNU, of course, I can't call you an opposition party because you're now part and parcel of the governing, say, coalition within the structures of South Africa. So you're no more on the opposition benches, which means there's a larger pressure on you because you're now part and parcel of this GNU. For the citizen out there, for the viewer watching that has so much of interest because they are a citizen of the country, after all, and their interest is in this country and their emotions are invested in this country. Can you safely say that with the incoming 7th administration, the GNU can address everything in this country. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but in the next 2 to 3 years, is there confidence that South Africa can be fixed and that it can be a country where equality and an economy is functioning for everyone to be part of and proud of?
It's not an easy issue to resolve. I mean, the disparities between the rich and poor is the gap is very wide. There are deep-rooted problems that make it not easy for government and even civil society to resolve those issues. However, we're going to put the building blocks in place. Our role is to create a climate conducive to allowing people to express themselves in the economic field, almost in every field, and benefit from the changes that are taking place in South Africa.
Mr. Seroke, thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Point on Hilaal TV. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
That's Jaki Seroke. He's the Secretary for Finance. And of course, he was the lead negotiator for the Government of National Unity for the Pan-African Congress. From myself, Ross Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg, Jazakallah so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.